Okay.
So welcome. So this is the second part of a chat I'm having today with Department Chair, Dr. Bob McNab, about just sort of the situation, the sort of the state of economics of as a discipline. The first part was about the current economic conditions. And so, uh, Bob, looking at economics as a discipline, is there anything in particular that you think makes economics compelling as a field of study?
Sure. I'm somewhat biased as I'm an economist,
Of course.
but one of the things I think that really makes economics appealing to me is that it equips you with the toolkit. And what I've found in my experience is that as an economist, you're always tackling different problems, and you have various things in your toolkit to tackle those problems. Let me give you an example. If I am talking with a decision maker at a major public enterprise, that discussion is much more focused on business operations and how we can help them think about their return on investment and how to translate that to policymakers, right? So you take something very technical in terms of analysis and you have to create a public story for it that people can understand. If, on the other hand, you're doing a research project for a public or private client, well, for example, we did one last year looking at the economic impacts associated with flooding in coastal Virginia. That is has to be technically rigorous and it goes through multiple layers of peer review, not only by the people who hire you, but by the state agency, and then gets publicly released. So you have to be very diligent in your analysis and very careful about what you say. And then the data speaks for itself. If you write a paper, an academic paper, it's an entirely different form of writing, but they're all pulling from the same toolbox at the end of the day. It's a combination of working with data, it's a combination of working with code, it's a combination of trying to understand the results. One of the things I often tell students is if you're doing research, the easiest part of the research often is running the econometric analysis, doing the linear regressions. That's the easy part because by the time you've gotten there, you've done all the data gathering, data cleaning, data filtering, data, descriptive statistics, worrying about are there other sources available, doing your literature review, figuring out your model and how it grounds the testable hypotheses. Then finally, after you've done all that work, you get the run a regression and something may not turn out. It may be unexpected. It may show nothing is important. It may show everything is important. And then you have to interpret the results. And you have to be able to objectively go into that and without saying, I really think X influences Y. Really, you should be asking, does it influence Y? And then you're not trying to generate results by torturing data. You're actually letting the data reveal the results to you.
It's true. It's something that I also enjoy about being an economist. It kind of got me inspired a little bit there as you were talking about it. And so if you were thinking about some advice for students, right? So the potential students, someone thinking about either a bachelor's degree or graduate work in economics, are there any particular qualities or skills that you think those students should work on in order to sort of increase the likelihood of being successful in their
Sure.
studies?
So, as a hobby, because I've got nothing else to do, I referee soccer and lacrosse.
Mhm.
And I'm going to give you a lacrosse analogy. Let's say, Jay, you wanted to be a pro basketball player. Congratulations. That's your
I need a few more inches of height, but yeah.
right. So unfortunately, Jay, you're not 6'5", and you don't have the skills like LeBron James. I don't either. So you would find it quite difficult to ascend to pro basketball because there are
Mhm.
just various physical attributes you have to have. Same thing if you woke up one morning and said, you know what, I want to be a pro defensive lineman in the NFL, right? You
Yes.
have to have a certain intelligence, speed, et cetera, et cetera. So there are some sports in which you have to have specific physical attributes to succeed. Lacrosse is much different in that. You see wide variations in body types. You see kids playing lacrosse who are 5'8", maybe 160 pounds dripping wet, and just running people around in circles. You see guys that are 6'5", 280 with a long pole being a defenseman or attack. Huge body height, huge variation. And really, it's how much skill matters, but it's a skill that you could improve through repetition. It's like shooting free throws. The more you work on, passing and catching the ball, what we call wall ball, you're there doing wall ball repetitions. The better your hand-eye coordination gets, even if you start off anywhere, the better you will perform, even against somebody who has natural talent. And so economists are kind of the same thing. You don't have to be so smart that you're going to go get a PhD in astrophysics. That's nice. It's very helpful if you are. But many people fear economics and they go, oh my God, it has so much math. And I would agree, yes, we have more math, more rigor than some of the other business professions. But that math and rigor allows you access to things that other disciplines don't. When we talk about linear regressions and econometrics and descriptive statistics and hypothesis testing, people get fearful of that because they're like, oh, wow, that's a lot of math. That's a lot of things. And it's like, yes, but they're all tools to allow you to do statistical analysis that employers are now saying, we want people to do that. So we are reading the market and we're adapting to the market by providing students with those analytical capabilities. So if they get out on the job market, they could go, for example, to Milwaukee Tool and be a data scientist, as one of our foreign students. They could go to the city of Norfolk. They could go to the Port of Virginia. They could go to another university in a PhD program. You're not locked into a specific outcome just because of the discipline. You could choose your route along the way. You could be more technically complex or less technically complex. And that's why I kind of look like economics as, yes, we're rigorous and we're kind of like out there doing things, but you really have a lot of choices within the program on how you want to structure your experience. And students go, well, again, there's so much math. And I keep saying in the undergraduate degree, it's largely add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And when you get to the graduate level in terms of the master's program, yes, there's some calculus and matrix algebra, but it's nothing like a PhD program because the master's program here is really towards that applied focus and grounding you in the tools that you could pick up and go get a job and work with an employer using those tools or have a great foundation for a PhD program. So that's one of the things I think a lot of students have this fear and trepidation of, that I'm just going to be doing, a degree in mathematics. And the reality is, no, you're not. We use math, but math does not use us.
Yeah. And so so students who might study in economics, and so I know there's some difference, but it might be overlap. So what kind of career opportunities might an undergraduate or someone who finishes the master's program we have anticipate?
Well, for example, if you're in, let me back up a little bit and kind of say, why do we know what we know? Excuse me. If you look at the post-secondary education outcomes data from the U.S. Census, and you look at the 1, 5, and 10-year median wage or salary by discipline. In business schools, the top two are always accounting and economics, and by tens of thousands of dollars a year. Why is that? Well, it's because of the skills that you learn during your economics program means that you're not going to go into a specific job. You have a wide range of jobs you could choose. So that's why I'm saying I've had undergraduate students who end up working for the Bureau of Labor Statistics or the city of Norfolk or the Economic Development Agency down in the city of Chesapeake I've had them go on to get degrees in other disciplines in graduate school. I've had graduate students, like I mentioned, Milwaukee Tool, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Port of Virginia, City of Chesapeake, again, economic development. PhD programs at SUNY in New York or Houston or Auburn, or I mean, we could just go through these.
Right.
And if you look at it, it's just huge variety because it depends upon the interests of students that they come out with this set of skills and they have a wide range of choices. That's kind of different than accounting, right? If you go through the
Yeah.
accounting degree, you kind of know I'm going to go do accounting. If you do
It's
an
true.
economics degree, you can become an economist, right? But being an economist can mean working within economics and as a master's, or getting a PhD and becoming private sector, public sector economist. And um, people go, well, if I go get my PhD, I'm going to become a professor. If you look at the statistics for the economics
Yeah.
discipline, excuse me, most graduates are not in academia. Most graduates are
Yeah.
now in public and private sector,
Yeah.
by far. I mean, you see,
Yes.
same thing with masters, right? People, they're just getting more tools in their toolkit that employers like, and they're getting hired in a variety of positions.
Yeah. Yeah. And the money will draw people sort of um, towards where they're most rewarded. That sounds like something an economist would talk about. And oftentimes remuneration is a little bit higher in private sector
Right.
jobs as an
So
economist.
if we think about economics and we
Mm.
think about labor demand and labor supply, why are wages higher for economists? And they're higher because the demand curve has shifted farther out to the right for the economists relative to
Mhm.
supply, so wages keep increasing. One of the things that undergraduates fail to understand is one of the most significant choices that they make is not where they go to college. It's what major they choose in college.
Yep.
There's much more variation in median earnings at the 1, 5, and 10 year mark by major than there is across universities. Yes, you have the Harvards and Penn States and right the top tier
Right. Of
who
course.
earn much more than somebody going to what's a at you. But even within those universities, you see significant variation
Of course.
amongst majors. And this is one of the things I often tell students and I have conversations with is just because a degree is easier to get doesn't mean that the wages are going to be significantly higher. In fact, they're probably going to be significantly lower.
Right. Yeah. I mean, hopefully, you know, wages are based on some level by productivity, and hopefully the skills you are learning
Right.
do should affect that.
Well, one of the
Uh,
things we do at the undergraduate level and the graduate level well is that it's not just learning models and graphs and whatever. You have to put in the old school way of saying things, you have to put pen to paper. You
yeah.
know, if you look and talk to employers nowadays, their number one complaint is that undergraduates, when they come out into the job market, lack the basic skills on how to do a job. They can't write well, they can't present well, they can't take a bunch of things and present in a small summary. And so that's that that is something that people hate to do, right? Oh my God, I got to write a paper. I don't love, I got to write a discussion. Oh, why are they giving me data? Those are fundamental skills to increase your post-graduation compensation. I've
Yeah.
known students, well-qualified students, who survive about 6 months in their first job and get let go because they cannot write a memo, they cannot send an email in proper format, they can't take a lot of data and distill it down into a result. In fact, we were just having a conversation last month with a developer, and the developer was like, "Okay, we need an intern who could do X, Y, and Z. Take a bunch of data, distill it down into a one pager, and identify opportunities for us." And That wasn't like sophisticated analysis. It was like we got thousands of data points, throw them into Excel, do some descriptive statistics for us, and tell us where the outliers.
Mhm.
If you don't, that's what I think we do well. We help develop those skills. So when you go out, you can go, I could do that. I could help you with that. And then you got your foot in the door and the rest is up to you.
Right, right. And so just to change, just because we're kind of getting close on time, I know you have a pending appointment. Um, I did want to change sort of the topic. And so part of some of the efforts that we've been undergoing recently as a department is trying to engage more with our alumni, our former students, and then also with the public in general, right? And so if you were going to just make a general statement, how do you think that if this an alumni of our program was watching this, how can they stay connected? Is there a way that they contribute to us or to the university?
Well, I think number one is I know you maintain an active LinkedIn profile for the for the MA program. I occasionally post on LinkedIn with my morning coffee and irritation. Um, and so that's the first step is just kind of being engaged with social media. The second step would be, hey, reach out and find out what events we're having, right? Come to
Mhm.
the beginning of the semester or end of semester welcome functions or goodbye functions and meet students and tell them your story, right? Tell us what worked and what didn't work for you. Because that's the most valuable information. You get out into the workplace, you're like, oh, these are the tools that really worked, and that was completely useless. That information should come back to us because if we're teaching stuff that isn't adapted to the modern workplace, we need to take a look at the curriculum and get a move on. And then once you're very successful, like most of our graduates will be, I will assume on average, it's a hypothesis test. Nobody could test it. I'm just going to say they're all above average. Um, then, of course, you could always make donations to the economics department scholarship fund, which we give out money to current students to help them buy books or with tuition and other things like that. That engagement can be, posting a like on LinkedIn all the way up to cutting a check. But the first step is always the hardest, right? To get back engaged and to get part of that community again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad there's always that thing about monetary resources. But at least from my point of view, as someone who's been trying to interact more with alumni, was on the committee when we sort of started this. The interactions is the great place to start. I would love to just start hearing from more. And I've been speaking with more of our former students. It has been nice to see and to have them interact with our current students as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
the best part of my day is typically when an email appears out of the blue from a former student who says, "This is me. You had me a couple, 3, 5, 10 years ago. This is what's happened in my life." I mean, I had a student from my previous job. I won't mention too many particulars. They were very successful in their career. They just recently retired. It was nice hearing from them. And, it's like, yeah, I was there, I advised their thesis like 18 years ago. And they still thought enough about to, not throw things at me, but to send a kind email. So
yeah,
that's kind of the best part of the day.
yeah, I'll admit I have that occasionally as well. And so just sort of as like a parting shot, something that I'll admit I'm kind of intrigued to hear what your response is. As someone who is generally impressed, like for those of you who have never met Professor McNab in person, he is very productive, gets lots of things done. If I could somehow replicate this, I would be much more. I would have more articles at least. Um, what inspired you initially to pursue economics? And then here we are, years into your career. What keeps you passionate? What keeps you going? Uh,
Well, uh, so I took a half sem in the junior year of high school. There was a half year course in half a semester course in economics, and it was like, boy, this is really interesting. And it was kind of like I want to study that, so I went and got my bachelor's degree in that. Like that's really interesting. But then and to show you just how things change in the world. So as I was in 1990, and I graduated in 1991 with my bachelor's. I was planning to go back in active duty in the Army, officer candidate school, make a career out of it. And then Mikhail Gorbachev severely screws up the Soviet Union. It implodes. And so I'm sitting there going, you know, I think the Cold War has ended. Military is not going to be a good career. There's going to be reductions in force. They're not going to do anything exciting for the next 20 years. That seems like a boring thing to do. Shows you how great a forecaster I am. So I just was like, I'll apply to PhD programs. So I did. And back then it was like there was postcards. You send off postcards. And I got into Georgia State University and the University of Tennessee and a couple others. And then it was like Georgia State gave me 2,000 more dollars per year than Tennessee. And I was like, I'm going to Georgia. And that's why I ended up at Georgia State University, which shows right, maximize my returns.
That's right.
All $8,000 or $10,000 a year graduate
Right.
student stipend.
Yeah. Professor McNab responds to incentives. It's not just something that we speak about in classes.
Right. So your question was a good one. It was what keeps me enthusiastic. I guess my problem is that I am probably broad and not deep. I don't as if I was looked at as a typical economist, I probably would be thought of as a failure because I jump from topic to topic to topic, and so I I have published articles ranging from the impact of fiscal decentralization on macroeconomic stability to the how complexity and computer-based training increases maintenance cost on Navy vessels to the reform of budgets in the Defense Department of Serbia to sea level rise and coastal flooding in Virginia. It's all over the place. And so many economists are like, here's my little square, and I'm going to just keep diving in it. And that has been my fault. And so, yeah, I've got things I want to do. I just keep getting, distracted. I guess I'm, like the dog in Up and squirrel in a way I go. Um, but that keeps me interested. And so what you find is everybody's different. And there are some people who are extremely passionate about their topic and they love learning everything about exploring new things about their one topic in their discipline. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I admire those people for that passion and dedication and advancement of the field. And there's other of us who are like, yeah, I got this toolkit and there's a bunch of interesting problems lying around and people come to me with problems and I love tackling them and I tackle it and then I'm off to the next one. And so that kind of keeps me interested in going.
Cool. I think that there's some lessons in there for the non-economists if we have some of those watching. There's something to be said, right? Trying to keep ourselves growing and interested as we move through a career
Yeah.
and change. Thank you. Thank you for your time, Bob. It's always fun to chat and hear your thoughts. Always interesting. And so
Try to keep it entertaining.
that's true. All right. So